Have you heard of the Second Great Awakening Revival? In the lawless Kentucky frontier, Reverend James McCready in a small church agreed in 1797, therefore we bind ourselves to observe the third Saturday of each month for 1 year as a day of fasting and prayer for the conversion of the sinners in Logan County and throughout the world. We also engaged to spend 1/2 hour every Saturday evening, beginning at the setting of the sun, and 1/2 hour every Sabbath morning at the rising of the sun, in pleading with God to revive His work. In June of 1800, 500 members of James McCready's 3 congregations gathered at the Red River for a camp meeting lasting several days, similar to the Scottish Holy Fairs, where teams of open-air preachers rotated in a continuous stream of sermons. On the final day, a mighty effusion of the Spirit came on everyone, and the floor was soon covered with the slain. Their screams for mercy pierced to the heavens. In July of 1800, the congregation planned another camp meeting at the Gaspar River. Surpassing their expectations, 8,000 people arrived, some from over 100 miles away. The power of God seemed to shake the whole assembly. Toward the close of the sermon, the cries of the distress arose almost as loud as his voice. After the congregation was dismissed, the solemnity increased till the greater part of the multitude seemed engaged in the most solemn manner. No person seemed to wish to go home. Hunger and sleep seemed to affect nobody. Eternal things were the vast concern. Here, awakening and converting work was to be found in every part of the multitude, and even some things strangely and wonderfully new to me. On August 7th, 1801, though Kentucky's largest city had less than 2,000 people, 25,000 people showed up at the revival meeting in Cane Ridge, Kentucky. Arriving from as far away as Ohio, Tennessee, and the Indiana Territory, they heard the preaching of Barton W. Stone and other Baptist, Methodist, and Presbyterian preachers. Reverend Moses Hodge described, "Nothing that imagination can paint can make a stronger impression upon the mind than one of those scenes. Sinners dropping down on every side, shrieking, groaning, crying for mercy, convulsed, professors praying, agonizing, fainting, falling down in distress. For sinners or in raptures of joy, as the work in general, there can be no question but it is of God. The subjects of it, for the most part, are deeply wounded for their sins and can give a clear and rational account of their conversion." The Second Great Awakening Revival led to the conversion of a third of Yale's student body through the efforts of its 8th president, Timothy Dwight IV. Spreading to other colleges, hundreds of students entered the ministry and pioneered the foreign missions movement, which made a global impact. Young men and women missionaries went to the American West, as far away as the Caribbean, Burma, and Hawaii. The Second Great Awakening led to the founding of the American Bible Society, the Society for the Promotion of Temperance, the denominations of Church of Christ, Disciples of Christ, Seventh-day Adventists. Christians helped reform prisons, cared for the handicapped and mentally ill, worked to abolish slavery. The sermons of attorney-turned-preacher Charles Finney inspired William Booth to found the Salvation Army and George Williams to found the YMCA, Young Men's Christian Association. George Addison Baxter, a skeptical professor at Washington Academy in Virginia, published an account of his travels through Kentucky, printed in the Connecticut Evangelical Magazine, March of 1802. The power with which this revival has spread, I was indeed highly pleased to find that Christ was all and in all in their religion. And it was truly affecting to hear with what agonizing anxiety awakened sinners inquired for Christ as the only physician who could give them any help. Those who called these things enthusiasm ought to tell us what they understand by the spirit of Christianity. Upon the whole, sir, I think the revival in Kentucky among the most extraordinary that have ever visited the Church of Christ, and all things considered, peculiarly adapted to the circumstances of that country. George Addison Baxter continued, "Something of an extraordinary nature seemed necessary to arrest the attention of a giddy people who were ready to conclude that Christianity was a fable. This revival has done it. It has confounded infidelity, awed vice into silence, and brought numbers beyond calculation under serious impressions. America has had a tremendous heritage of faith, and it's important for us to remember these miracles in American history.